What if I told you that the most important planet in your birth chart, the one that brings the most pressure, that explains why you feel stuck in life and where your deepest growth is waiting, is also the one that most people try and avoid? Yes, I am talking about Saturn. If you've ever felt like there's a weight on your back or a heaviness in your life and you can't explain it, or like you're doing everything right but still hitting against an invisible wall, stunting your progress, that is Saturn showing up in your life. In astrology, Saturn is the sign of time, karma, discipline, structure, responsibility, and self-mastery. It sounds heavy, right? But it's also the key to becoming the strongest version of yourself. While other planets show you where you might shine, where you dream, what you dream about, Saturn shows you where you're asked to do the work, to show up and grow the hard way through continued commitment and effort. Saturn is slow. It takes nearly 30 years to orbit the entire zodiac, and in that time, it'll move through everything, every single sign, every single house in your chart. But wherever Saturn lands, one thing is guaranteed. You are going to be asked to take full responsibility there, not overnight, but over a period of time. This is why Saturn is known as the Lord of Karma, or the great teacher, or the father of time, because it teaches through time. You can't fast track it. And Saturn does not show up to punish you, it actually shows you what you're capable of. It points to the part of your life where you can't take shortcuts, where shortcuts won't work, and the only way forward is through resistance, through fear, through patience, and through time. So Saturn is often misunderstood, as I explained in my last video. It's painted as limitation when in reality, it's like someone sculpting you over time. In this video, we are going deeper than my last video. We are going to expose what Saturn really means in your chart and what the sign and the house it's in tells you the truth about the karmic contract your soul signed for this lifetime, where your soul agreed to grow up. You'll learn what it means to have Saturn in Aries versus Saturn in Cancer, or how Saturn in the 10th house compares to Saturn in the 7th house, which is often really feared, and I'm going to debunk that in this video. Each placement is totally different, but they all share one thing in common. Saturn reveals the lesson you must master before you fully feel free. So if you've been feeling stuck in life, this is a good place to start. And yes, we will also touch on the Saturn return in your late 20s, late 50s, and late 80s. Saturn returns are the time where the universe says, grow up or I will make you grow up. It is intense, but it's also incredibly empowering once you understand it. Before we dive into every single sign and house, I want you to grab a pen and paper for this video, or a Google Doc or a Notion template, whatever you like to write notes on, because this is not a passive watch. I'm going to teach you a lot about yourself in this video. 2 ways to get the most out of this video is, number 1, watching the sign and the house placement for the people in your life so you can understand them better. This is one of my favorite ways to use astrology, because you grow compassion for others in your life. And the second way to use this video is journaling about what you learn afterwards, because it is one thing to hear it and have self-awareness. It's another to be like, oh, this ties into my life this way, and here is how I can start working on it to grow. I'm going to have video chapters for every single sign and house, and when we talk about the Saturn return, in the description. Don't think of Saturn as a burden. Think of it as your personal trainer in the gym, but it's the gym of life, and it'll test you, it'll push you, and sometimes you want to just give up, but it's those very moments where you are built. And when you pass Saturn's test, let me tell you, the reward is not just external success, but it's internal strength and resilience, which no one can take away from you. This is not your typical astrology video full of vague generalization. This is about getting specific, grounded, and real with your Saturn placement and with yourself. Embracing the challenge, owning the work, and fully stepping into your own power. So if you're ready, let's begin. Saturn in Aries is a karmic placement that feels like driving with one foot on the gas and one foot on the brakes. Aries wants to go fast, be bold, break the rules, and Saturn tells us to slow down, to earn things, and to prove our worth. So what happens when the god of time and discipline lands in the sign of courage, instinct, and raw individuality? It creates tension and a lifetime lesson of self-mastery. People with Saturn in Aries often feel an early sense of being blocked when they try and assert themselves. Like maybe they had a parent or an authority figure who shut down their confidence, or they just never felt safe to fully take up space. There is often a hesitancy here, a fear of being too much and not enough at the same time. And so they either over-assert to the point of burning out or under-assert to the point of invisibility. It is a hard line to walk when your natural instinct is to act. But underneath all of that is the deeper truth here. These people are born to lead. Aries energy is about being the first, being the trailblazer, the one to say, let's go, let's try it. And Saturn makes that impulse deeper, more mature, and more serious. So the goal is no longer to chase the fire, but it's to forge the fire into something useful and sustainable. Saturn teaches you that true independence is not just about rebelling, it's about taking responsibility for your own direction in life. You are not just here to make noise, be loud, but to actually move mountains with that force. Leadership is not going to be something handed to you with this placement, trust me. It is something you build brick by brick through experience, trial, and painful error. You guys are probably going to have to face your fear of failure more than once. You might have to learn how to fall flat on your face before learning to stand on your own 2 feet. But when you do, you're not just a leader, you're a very inspirational figure for others. There could be past lifetimes around karma or leadership. You could have been in positions of power where you abused it or refused to step up when others needed you. In this lifetime, you are here to develop your own agency, your own identity, and your own will. You're not here to follow someone else's rules, but you're also not here to bulldoze against everyone either. You are here to become the authority in your own life. One of the biggest growth patterns for Saturn and Aries is learning to act from personal power instead of defensiveness. This means recognizing that no one else gets to define your worth or your role, but you do. But you can't just get that role. You have to do the work. You have to go to the gym, build the muscles, grow a healthy ego, grounded courage, and true accountability. This placement will keep you in situations that test your confidence, your patience, and your self-control until you find the strength to stay centered no matter what. This placement may also come with a quiet sense of loneliness or isolation, especially in early life. Like you might have felt like no one saw your true potential, or worse, there were people actively trying to suppress it. But Saturn does not let that go to waste. All of that is part of the shaping process. That pressure you faced is chiseling you into someone who can stand any storm. As you grow older, that fire in you is going to become less reactive and more refined. You start to develop a relationship with your instincts only when they're aligned with intent. Saturn in Aries teaches you to become a leader with both courage and conscientiousness. You are here to act boldly, clearly, and carry the responsibility of the choices you've made with pride. Some people with this placement are late bloomers. They often don't feel confident asserting themselves until their Saturn return hits around age 28 to 30. When they do, it'll surprise people with just how powerful, capable, and composed they are. That is the gift of Saturn because it rewards the long game, the slow build. It is not an easy placement, but it is a rewarding one because when you stop seeking that external validation, you give it to yourself. You realize that the only approval that matters is your own. Actions you take can ripple out and inspire others. Not when you lead from your ego, but when you lead by example. Saturn in Aries asks you to become someone who doesn't wait for permission, who uses their own momentum, someone who knows when to speak up and when to listen. It is about balancing action with awareness, drive with discipline, and will with wisdom. When you get that balance right, you will become a steady flame that doesn't just light the way for yourself, but also for others. Let me know if you have this placement and your experience with it, and make sure to check the video chapters so you understand what it means based off the house your Saturn is in, because that'll show you what area of life this is showing up in for you. And let's move on to Saturn in Taurus. Saturn in Taurus is one of the most materially focused Saturn placements, but also one of the most misunderstood. Taurus is the sign of stability, comfort, value. When Saturn is here, it just intensifies that desire, but it also delays the reward. This is going to create a lifetime of learning how to build true self-worth and real security, not just financial. It's going to be emotional, spiritual, self-worth-based security. People with Saturn in Taurus often carry a deep-rooted fear of not having enough, not being enough, even if they come from wealth. There's often a feeling that it could just all vanish at any point. And if they come from lack, that story hits even deeper. There is a tendency to equate material success with internal self-worth. Like, if I don't have enough, then I'm not enough. It is a painful narrative, but it's also a starting point for deep transformation. This placement can manifest as a scarcity mindset, fear of losing what you have, hoarding money or resources, or working yourself to exhaustion so you feel safe. It might even show up as control issues around food or comfort, either overindulging or seriously restricting yourself. All of this ties into your karmic story of figuring out what value is. What do you believe makes you valuable? And where did that belief come from? I would write that down too and journal about it after the video, because Saturn and Taurus is asking you to redefine that, to learn that your worth is not something to prove, but something to remember. You are not here to grind endlessly for scraps of validation. You are here to build a life that reflects your values, one slow, deliberate, unshakable step at a time. There may have been an early lifetime experience of financial instability, or parents who had a complicated relationship with money, either too controlling, too neglectful. These early memories create a subconscious imprint that life is hard, money is scarce, and you have to suffer for anything good. Saturn in Taurus wants you to question all of that, because suffering isn't a virtue, discipline is, and there is a difference. This placement often produces incredibly hard-working people, but sometimes that hard work becomes compulsive, like a shield. You may feel like you're only as good as your output. You may find yourself stuck in jobs that drain you just because you're getting that paycheck that gives you security. You may delay pleasure, beauty, enjoyment, all because you feel like you haven't earned it yet. And if you have people in your life with this placement, let me know if you sense any of this or if you experience it yourself. That is Saturn in its shadow in this placement, and there is a light side to it as well. The lesson here isn't to stop working, because you're really good at that. It is to stop working from fear. Your life is not a performance for others, it is a structure you are building for yourself. And Saturn wants that structure to be beautiful, but more importantly, it wants it to be yours. In its higher expression, Saturn in Taurus helps you build a lifetime rooted in your value system. It helps you understand the difference between fleeting pleasure and long-term fulfillment. It teaches you that beauty and worth are not equated to the things you acquire. They're things that you create, and it pushes you to create them in a way that lasts. This is also a placement that teaches the importance of embodiment, of slowing down, listening to your senses, trusting the signals of your body. It is easy with this placement to get stuck in the grind and forget what it's like to simply be. But the truth is, your body is your first home. And Saturn in Taurus asks you to teach your body as a temple, as sacred ground. So your health, your rhythms, your sense of groundedness are not side notes. They are the foundation for your life. You may have had past lifetimes where you were stripped of your resources, forced to survive under harsh conditions, or even exploited for your talents. These karmic imprints can show up as anxiety around not having enough, or guilt around enjoying what you do have. But Saturn is here to help you rewrite that script. Not by denying the fear and suppressing it, but by moving through it steadily, slowly, one stable step at a time. Saturn in Taurus is also deeply tied to the earth. This is a placement that benefits tremendously from walking barefoot, gardening, hiking, working with your hands, connecting to the earth in some way, cooking. You could find cooking really healing, or sitting in nature very healing, or some sort of crafts with your hands. These simple tactile acts will help regulate your nervous system and connect you to what really matters. The spiritual lesson here is simple but not easy. Build what matters. Build what lasts. And don't let fear trick you into thinking that slow progress isn't progress. With Saturn in Taurus, you are learning slow is sacred. You may not be the fastest builder, but you're going to build something incredibly solid. As you mature, you'll stop measuring your worth in dollars or productivity. You will begin to live by your values, trust them, and build from them. And when you get to that point, Saturn is going to reward you, not just with material abundance, but also with inner peace. That is the kind of peace where you say, I am enough, I have enough, and I know what truly matters. That is how Saturn in Taurus becomes a blessing. It doesn't just help you build wealth, which it will, it also helps you become it. I love you so much. Don't forget to check the video chapter so you can watch the house that your Saturn is in as well. This will show you what area of life the challenge, the lesson is showing up in. I love you so much, and I'll see you in the next video. Saturn in Gemini is like having a library in your head, but with the doors locked and a strict librarian checking your every thought. Gemini is naturally curious, spontaneous, and mentally agile. It wants to explore, ask questions, connect the dots. But Saturn will slow the process down, not to punish you, but to make sure you learn things that are actually grounded in truth. This placement shows up in people who felt silenced early in life. Maybe they were told to be quiet, or they were labeled as scattered or not smart enough. Others may have struggled with learning disabilities like dyslexia, speech issues, or maybe you just felt like your voice didn't matter. The result of this is an inner voice that constantly questions your value. Saturn and Gemini can make communication feel like a test you're constantly failing, even when no one is grading you. But here is the thing, Saturn does not block your voice to keep you hidden. It blocks it so you learn how to use your voice with intention. You're not here just to talk. You are here to communicate with clarity, purpose, and wisdom. This placement refines your thoughts and words over time, shaping you into someone whose ideas truly matter, like the wise archetype. In its shadow, this placement can bring the fear of being wrong, which leads to overthinking, overanalyze, second-guessing your words. You might feel like no idea is good enough, or that you need a degree or a certification to validate your intelligence. But Saturn is trying to teach you this. Your mind is valuable, not because it's perfect, but because it is yours, unique, thoughtful, and capable of evolving. Saturn and Gemini might also bring karmic themes around listening, not just speaking wisely, but also learning when to shut up and hear someone else out. You might have a deep fear of being misunderstood, which leads you to compulsively explaining yourself. Or you might just freeze up, afraid that your words will come out wrong. But the more you practice being present, like really present, the easier it becomes to tune into the conversation underneath the words. This is also a placement of mental mastery, but that mastery doesn't come from being the smartest person in the room. It comes from discipline, focus, finishing what you start. Gemini energy loves to juggle a million ideas at once, but Saturn asks you which ones are worth pursuing. Which ideas can you take all the way from concept to completion? If you struggle with inconsistency, whether it's in your studies, communication, or self-expression, this placement is teaching you how to follow through, to sharpen your mind not just for clever banter, but for true understanding, and that means choosing a couple things and going deep into those subjects. Past life themes involve issues with misuse of speech. Maybe you were a manipulator, a gossiper, or someone who spread misinformation, or you could have been silenced or punished for speaking your truth. Either way, in this lifetime, you are here to build your voice from the ground up, to use it not just to express, but also to connect, to bring ideas together in a way that serves the larger whole. Saturn in Gemini also brings a strong drive towards learning, but learning the hard way. You might find that traditional school structures are frustrating, and your mind might not work in the same way that others do. I would look to Mercury in your chart to understand your learning style as well. But overall, this is okay. Your intelligence is unique. You may be a late bloomer academically, intellectually, but once your mind matures, it becomes razor sharp. This placement can also challenge your relationship with technology, transportation, or community because Gemini rules all of these. For example, you could fear public speaking or avoid writing because it feels overwhelming. But with effort and time, these all become your greatest strengths. Saturn rewards perseverance, so when you stick with it, you will become someone whose voice carries influence, and I get chills when I say that. This placement is not just about intellect, it's also about everyday skills. Driving, writing, speaking, organizing your thoughts. You might struggle with these early on, but then later master them. Eventually, Saturn rewards you with a voice that carries weight, not because it's the loudest, but because it's earned, because you've thought things through, because you mean what you're saying, and when you speak, people listen. Not out of obligation, but out of respect for you. So if you have Saturn and Gemini, know this, your voice matters. Your ideas matter, and with time and patience and willingness to stay the course, you will become the kind of communicator who does not just talk, but who transmits meaning deeply, clearly, and powerfully. That is the gift of Saturn and Gemini, the ability to think deeply and speak truths that cut through all of the noise. And make sure to go ahead to the video chapters and watch the part for the house that your Saturn sits in so you can understand what area of life this shows up in most. Saturn in Cancer is like trying to build a house on shifting emotional ground. Cancer is the sign of feeling, nurturance, and emotional memory. Its instinct is to protect, to comfort, and to connect. But when Saturn enters this space, there is often a wall built up around the heart, a protective shell that is both an armor and a prison. This placement often speaks to the emotional wounds in our life. Maybe you grew up in a home where emotions weren't well, or worse, they were weaponized. Maybe you were the one who was expected to be the emotional rock for your family, taking on adult responsibilities at a far too young age. Whatever the story is, Saturn in Cancer tends to create people who feel like they have to hold it all and have everything together even if they're falling apart on the inside. The result is emotional inhibition, difficulty trusting, a tendency to withdraw or shut down instead of opening up. You might crave closeness, but you push people away. Or you might stay in relationships that don't nourish you simply because the idea of being alone is terrifying. All of this is Saturn's way of saying there is something here you need to build. And that something is a true sense of emotional safety. But it has to come from within. Cancer is about home, not just the physical one, but the internal one. And Saturn and Cancer people often feel like they don't really have a home. There can be a deep feeling of neglect, abandonment, or emotional hunger, and this creates a need to create that home for other people. This compulsive need to be the caregiver, the nurturer, the one who holds space for everybody else, but at what cost? Saturn wants you to turn that care inward, to parent yourself, to become the stable, supportive figure that maybe you didn't have, and to build emotional security not from who's around you, but from who you've become. In its shadow, Saturn and Cancer people can harden their heart. It can turn vulnerability into a weakness and caretaking into a burden. You might resent others for needing you or fear being needy or clingy. You might put up such strong walls that no one can get in, even the people who genuinely love you, and then you wonder why you feel so alone. Let me know if you're experiencing this right now, but when we move to the light side of Saturn and Cancer, this placement becomes one of the most powerful builders of emotional legacy. They've done the work and create homes, literally and metaphorically, that are sanctuaries. These are the ones who break generational curses, who became the emotionally available parents, who became parents, and emotionally available friends, not because it was easy, but because they earned it through the work they put in. There are karmic themes in family, especially around the mother. You may have been a parent in a past lifetime, or had your role in a family system defined before you even understood who you were. This lifetime is asking you to reclaim emotional sovereignty, to find your own needs beneath the roles you've played, to stop seeing sensitivity as a weakness and instead as a guide. This placement also deals with a fear around dependency, yours or others. So you could fear being too needy or being needed too much by people. But Saturn teaches balance here, so it's okay to need and it's okay to be needed. But what matters is the structure you build to hold those connections. Are they honest? Are they mutual? Are they rooted in emotional truth? You may have experienced anxiety or fear around physical homes, worried about being displaced or financially insecure, or lacking a space that truly felt like your own. And these very fears can cause you to hold on too tightly to a physical place or to unhealthy connections, or stay too long in unhealthy environments. Saturn here reminds you that home is not just a location, it is a state of being that you can cultivate within yourself. And as you grow older, this Saturn in Cancer will soften. You begin to see the strength in vulnerability. You start to let people in, not all at once, but enough to know that you're not alone. And when you do, that emotional richness that you unlock is profound. You go from being emotionally guarded to emotionally grounded in a very real way. Saturn in Cancer is about building the emotional foundation that you never had, being a safe space for yourself and for others. You stop repeating the story of emotional lack and you write a new one where you are both soft and strong, sensitive and solid. When you walk this path with intention, and it's not an easy one, you don't just survive emotional storms, but you become a shelter and a safe space for the emotional storms that come. You become a quiet force of emotional integrity in a world that desperately needs it. That is Saturn's gift in Cancer. The power to turn vulnerability into resilience and craft a new kind of home. And don't forget, guys, to go to the video chapters and watch the portion for the house your Saturn is in, because that'll show you what area of life this plays out in. Saturn in Leo brings a deep lesson of self-expression. Leo wants to shine and wants to be seen and wants to be heard and wants to love, to roar, to be celebrated. But Saturn in this fire sign often brings a fear of that very thing, of being too much, too visible, too exposed. So it's a contradiction, like your soul longs to be recognized, but you fear what might happen if you truly step into the spotlight. This placement can show up as people who are taught early to dim their light. Maybe you were shamed for being dramatic or too much. Maybe they weren't encouraged to develop confidence, or their attempts at creativity were met with judgment instead of support. The result is often someone who hides their talents, plays small, and waits for permission to be themselves. But the truth is, Saturn and Leo people are born to be radiant. The trick is they have to learn their self-expression. They have to discover it through experience, getting rejected, through trying again and again, until the performance stops being about proving something and instead about sharing something real. Leo rules the heart, and Saturn in Leo often means the heart has been bruised. This can bring fears around joy, romance, and even parenting. People with this placement might struggle to let themselves be vulnerable in love. They might fear being laughed at or rejected if they express themselves too freely. Or they might try and perfect the performance. Every single move is detailed and thought out because they don't want to risk looking foolish. The core wound here is often around worthiness. Am I good enough to be loved just for being me? And Saturn's answer is always the same. Build the self that knows it is, not through external validation, but through deep inner alignment with what's true to you. Saturn and Leo people often have rich inner worlds of ideas, dreams, and desires, but they hesitate to bring them into the light because somewhere along the way, they learned visibility equals vulnerability, and that being seen meant being judged. And yet, the truth is, being seen is how we connect, it's how we inspire people, how we come alive. This placement is about the long journey of learning to trust your joy, to give yourself permission to play, to create, to fall in love with life again. And that's not easy when you are told to be useful, serious, and practical. It squashes that enjoyment. Because Leo doesn't thrive on usefulness, though at the end of the day, it thrives on passion. And Saturn in Leo is about structuring your passion in a way that builds something lasting. There is also a karmic story around leadership here, so you may have abused power in past lifetimes, or used your charisma for manipulation instead of inspiration, or you may have feared leadership, always staying in the background. Either way, in this lifetime, you are here to lead by example, to embody the type of courage that invites others to be inspired and do so as well. This placement can bring that fear of failure that is so strong it might prevent you from even starting. Asking yourself, what if people laugh? What if they make fun of me? But Saturn is just saying, do it anyways. You're not here to be perfect. You are here to be real, and that's what will reach people. Saturn in Leo, at the end of the day, teaches you that creativity is not just for fun, it's a tool to connect, a way to inspire, a way to heal, but only if you're willing to be imperfect, to try to be seen, to let go of needing to have it all together, or appear to have it all together. The shadow of this placement is a performer who never really feels joy, the person who puts on a show time and time again, hoping that one day people will clap loud enough for them to feel whole. But the gift here is becoming someone who doesn't need that approval, who doesn't need applause, because the act of expressing becomes their reward. As you grow older, Saturn and Leo will help you mature into somebody that knows how to wield joy and wisdom, who knows how to create meaning. If this is your placement, you are here to take creativity seriously, to take your pleasure seriously, to stop dismissing your desire to be seen as childish or self and start seeing it as sacred, because when you follow something that lights you up, it's going to naturally light other people up, and we need more of that. So create, perform, laugh, lead, share. You are meant to be long-lasting and impactful with your joy. That is the final lesson of Saturn in Leo. The joy, the light, the fun is not just about you. It's about what your light will unlock in other people. All right, I love you so much. Don't forget to go into the video chapters and watch the sign and depart for the house your Saturn is in to understand what area of life this shows up for you in. Saturn in Virgo brings a profound lesson of precision, humility, and service. Virgo is the sign of discernment and systems. It wants to be useful. It is deeply tied to the mind-body connection and the sacredness of a ritual. When Saturn is in Virgo, the lessons become focused on the discipline and the details, order in the chaos, and the tension between perfection and progress. This placement often produces people who hold themselves to incredibly high, sometimes impossible standards. There is a voice in their mind that constantly says, you should be better, you should have done more. Saturn in Virgo can create the most restless inner critic, and that's the kind of pressure that doesn't push you into growth, but paralyzes you into self-doubt. Often this comes from childhood environments that demanded competence from you very early on. Maybe you were the responsible one, the fixer, the helper. Maybe your efforts were only noticed when something went wrong. Over time, you learn and internalize that love is conditional on performance, and perfection becomes your armor. But the truth of the matter is Saturn in Virgo isn't asking you to be perfect. It's asking you to be precise, thoughtful, and deliberate. It's asking you to slow down and master the steps to understand the process, not because you're going to be rewarded when you get it right, but because you will grow from engaging with the work fully. This placement can also bring health challenges, especially if it's in the 6th house, often linked to anxiety, overworking, or psychosomatic patterns. Virgo rules the nervous system and digestion. When Saturn is here, you are being called to take responsibility for how you care for your body. The body becomes a mirror for your inner structure. Are you running on empty all the time? Are you clenching down on every single detail of life, hoping it'll protect you from the chaos? What is the pattern running in the background? There is also a karmic theme here around control. Saturn and Virgo people often come from past lives where everything depended on precision. You could have been a server, a healer, a scholar, and now the lesson in this lifetime is to have that sacred service, but without martyrdom, without needing to be flawless. You may have grown up in environments where discipline was emphasized, routine over spontaneity. Any deviation from the right way was frowned upon, or even punished. So you learned early on that being clean, quiet, and competent were the goal. This often results in someone who's deeply uncomfortable with messes, emotional or otherwise. But in this life, you are learning to accept the messiness. Life, as you're learning, is often pretty dang messy. The shadow side of this placement is hypercriticism of others, but mostly yourself. You might find it hard to rest, hard to trust, hard to delegate tasks, because deep down you fear if something isn't done perfectly, it will fall apart, and maybe you'll fall apart if it's not done in that way. You could also struggle with imposter syndrome even if you're objectively excellent. There's often a persistent sense that you're not doing enough, not good enough, not worthy of rest or praise. And this stems from a deep need to be in control, but that control is rooted in fear. Here's the gift with Saturn in Virgo: incredible mastery. Over time, Saturn in Virgo produces people who are deeply capable, grounded, and wise. They're not flashy, they're not loud, but they are quietly excellent. They're the type of people that others will go to time and time again because they've proven their integrity over and over. Saturn in Virgo also teaches humility, not the kind of shrinking ourselves, but from them knowing their place in the larger world. You're not here to be a star, you're here to be the foundation. And that doesn't mean you're small, it means you are essential. This placement rewards the people who are willing to do the work that no one else sees. The emotional janitors, the behind-the-scenes healers, the people who notice what others miss and fix it quietly without needing the credit. You might not get the applause, but you get something a bit better. You get the deeper satisfaction of knowing you've done your part with care and devotion. Eventually, Saturn in Virgo is going to teach you to soften the edges of your perfectionism, to accept flaws not as failures, but as parts of being human. You learn to value effort over outcome and progress over perfection, and over time that liberates you from the tyranny of not enough. If this is your placement, the healing lies in learning how to relax into structure, how to use your incredible attention to detail not to punish yourself, but to build something meaningful, whether it's a routine, a practice, an empire, a business, some body of work that serves others. So if you have this placement, know this: you are here to be of sacred service to the world, to help bring sacred order into the world of chaos, not through rigidity, but through grace. You are here to serve people not from a place of obligation, but from a place of devotion, and most of all to learn that your value was never based on perfection. It was always based on your presence, your care, and your quiet excellence. Your work matters, your healing matters, and you don't have to be perfect to be powerful. That is Saturn in Virgo, the master of slow, steady healing, the alchemist, the one who knows the small, consistent acts of care create a life and a legacy. All right, guys, don't forget to go ahead into the video chapters and watch the house that your Saturn sign is in to understand a deeper sense of where this shows up in your life. I love you so much. Saturn in Libra brings a life lesson centered around fairness, relationships, and inner balance. Libra is the sign of harmony, justice, partnership, and when it's in Saturn, the planet of responsibility, structure, karma, it finds itself exalted here. This means Saturn is strong in Libra, not because it makes life easy, but because lessons are focused, elevated, and deeply transformative when integrated. If you have Saturn in Libra, you are being asked to build something real out of your partnerships. This is not a placement for casual flings or superficial socializing. Saturn wants depth, commitment, meaning. And in Libra, that means truly knowing and learning how to show up for another person, not out of obligation, but out of integrity. Early life relationships may have felt really challenging. You might have attracted people who are cold, controlling, or emotionally unavailable, or you might be the person who struggles signals to open up, to trust, to let yourself be seen. And you could have learned early on that love came with conditions, that approval is earned, it's not given freely. So you become so careful and measured that you end up being distant in love. But this placement is not about shutting down emotionally. It's about learning how to relate consciously, to understand that true balance in relationships doesn't come from being nice, telling them what they want to hear, being agreeable, or always keeping the peace, but instead it comes from honesty, boundaries, mutual respect. There's often a karmic theme around dependence versus independence. In past lives, you may have over-identified with being someone else's support system. Maybe you are the advisor, the mediator, or the partner who always compromised. In this life, you are learning how to be in a relationship without losing yourself. That means Saturn in Libra is asking you, where are you people-pleasing out of fear? Where are you staying in relationships to avoid being alone? Where are you avoiding relationships out of fear of rejection or vulnerability? One of the most powerful gifts of this placement is the ability to create mature, long-lasting partnerships. But first, you have to get very clear on what you actually value, because Libra is all about beauty, ideals, and principles. So Saturn asks you to commit to those ideals, not just in romance, but also in your one-on-one dynamics. That can be business partnerships, friendships, even clients. And what most people don't talk about is you could go through a season of loneliness with this placement. That is Saturn's way of making sure you don't settle. You might need to learn how to enjoy your own company first, to build your own inner sense of balance, so when you do finally connect, it's from a place of fullness, not need. Saturn in Libra also highlights your issues of fairness. You might have a strong internal sense of justice and an internal compass around what's fair, what's deserved, but here is the trap. Trying to control the scales yourself, trying to keep everything even, trying to make everything right, because that is not your job. And it is exhausting. There can also be a fear around legal obligations. Marriage, business, anything that legally binds you could be overwhelming. But these commitments are actually where your greatest growth will lie, because Saturn wants you to learn how to commit from choice, not from pressure, to commit in ways that strengthen both parties, not trap them. You could struggle with indecision, always weighing your options, and Saturn adds an intense pressure to try and make the right choice. This placement teaches you that there is no perfect choice, only choices made from clarity and commitment. Trust yourself to decide and then follow through. The shadow side of Saturn in Libra is someone who hides behind politeness, who smiles but seethes underneath, who resents the imbalance but does not speak up about it. Over time, that leads to bitterness, resentment, emotional shutdown. But the gift of this placement is learning how to create fairness by being fair with yourself first. Speaking up, being honest, letting the relationship breathe instead of smothering it in expectations. And if you have Saturn in Libra, you are being called to master the art of relating, not to control others, but to show up as yourself fully and let the connection grow from that truth. And maybe most importantly, Saturn in Libra teaches us that love is a choice, not a feeling, not a fantasy, but a practice, a structure you build together brick by brick through trust, respect, and accountability. This placement is overall here to help you become the friend, the collaborator, the partner, and ally who can be counted on, not because you're perfect, but because you're present, and that presence is what creates a relationship that will last a lifetime. Saturn in Libra asks you, are you willing to do the work? Are you ready to do the work of love? Because if you are, the reward of this placement isn't just relationship, it's peace. You will see outer harmony in your life when the structure of your heart is strong enough to share itself with another. That is the final lesson of Saturn in Libra. Balance isn't something you find, it is something you build. And don't forget to watch the house that your Saturn is in. I have the video chapters linked below. And moving on to Saturn in Scorpio. Saturn in Scorpio is one of the most intense placements in the zodiac. Here, the planet of boundary, structure, discipline merges with a sign of secrecy, transformation, and deep emotional truth. Scorpio, the sign of death and rebirth, of digging into the emotional underworld, is in Saturn. And Saturn says, you must master your own depths. You must face your own shadows. You must take responsibility for your power. This placement often shows up in charts of people who have been through deeply transformative life experiences, things that force emotional growth whether they wanted it or not. It's a placement that can feel like pressure from the inside. Saturn tightens around Scorpio's need for control, secrecy, and intensity, and forces it to either break or alchemize it. If you have Saturn in Scorpio, you do not trust easily, not others, and often not yourself. You could have experienced betrayals, power struggles, or violations of trust early in this lifetime that made you build up strong emotional walls. You learned that vulnerability equates to danger. So if you armor up, if you hold your cards close to your chest, you would be in control at all times. But here is the paradox. Saturn in Scorpio is learning that true power comes from surrender. from learning to let go and understand we can't control everything. And in fact, the more we try, the more fearful and isolated we become. There's a karmic theme here around learning how to work with power in healthy ways. In past lives, you could have misused power or been dominated by others who did. This lifetime is about healing that cycle, stepping into your own personal power without domination, manipulation, or secrecy. With this placement, though, you fear being emotionally exposed because Scorpio is a sign that feels everything really deeply and doesn't always show it. And with Saturn here, that emotional depth just gets buried deeper and deeper. You may not even understand your feelings at times, but they're there and feel so intense and primal, waiting to be acknowledged. That is the biggest part of the work. Saturn in Scorpio is asking you to develop emotional maturity, not by shutting down, but by learning how to feel deeply without being consumed by it. To hold space for grief, rage, love, fear, without losing yourself in it. It is the sign of the emotional alchemist, turning pain into wisdom, secrets into insight, fear into strength, and sexuality is a core theme with this placement. There could be a shame, a repression, or a fear of being overpowered. You could have grown up in a strict household that had shaming or confusing messages around sex. Or you could have experienced something in early life that made sex feel unsafe or even invasive, and Saturn in Scorpio brings the challenge in this lifetime to heal that wound, to claim your right to be intimate, empowered, and safe in connection on your own terms. This placement is also deeply tied to finances, especially other people's resources. You could have fears around debt, inheritance, taxes, or relying on others for support, feeling like if you don't control the money, it's not going to be safe. But again, Saturn is teaching you trust, not blind faith, but trust earned through integrity and honesty over time. And there's also a deep fear around loss with Saturn and Scorpio, of losing control, losing loved ones, losing your sense of self in another person, merging too deeply. But this lifetime is not about avoiding loss. It's about learning how to transform through the loss you go through, to become more wise after each trial. You could struggle with jealousy and possessiveness, or you may repress your emotions so deeply that you appear cold to everyone else when really you care so much. The key here is emotional transparency, learning to speak your truth even when it's messy. One shadow side of this placement can be manipulation, using your power to control others because you fear being vulnerable. But this gift is the exact opposite. So you're learning how to be deeply honest and courageously open while leading from a place of truth. To hold this incredible emotional and psychic power, not to control others, not to dominate, but to heal. If you have Saturn in Scorpio, the work here is to stop hiding from your emotional truth, to stop trying to control everything and instead develop a deeper faith that you can trust yourself to get through whatever comes up in life, to master emotional resilience and not fear vulnerability, but see it as a doorway to transformation. And perhaps most powerfully, it's going to teach you to become a guardian of emotional truth. By this, I mean that you become the kind of person that others turn to when life gets dark because you've been there, you survived the terrain, and you built strength. This is not an easy placement, but it's also one of the most powerful because when you do the work, you stop running away from your emotional power, you become unstoppable, a deep sense of strength is within you, a sense of wisdom, and that is the final lesson of Saturn and Scorpio: power through vulnerability, strength through surrender, and rebirth through truth. And guys, don't forget to go to the video chapters and watch the house part of this video so you understand what area of life this shows up for you in. I love you so much. Saturn in Sagittarius. This is a placement that demands truth, wisdom, and the courage to forge your own path. Sagittarius is the sign of philosophy, truth, belief systems, and the search for meaning. So when it's in Saturn, the planet of structure, discipline, and it enters this freedom-loving sign, the lesson becomes clear. Take responsibility for what you believe in. Build a framework around your ideals, and be willing to let go of the beliefs that no longer serve you. If you have Saturn in Sagittarius, you were born with a deep thirst for knowledge. But it's not just about understanding, it's about experience that helps you understand life at a deeper level. You want the big answers. Why are we all here? What does this mean? And what is my role? What is my purpose in the larger picture? But Saturn doesn't come out here and hand you the truth on a silver platter. It makes you work for it. It makes you doubt it, question it, strip it down, and rebuild it until it actually aligns with who you are. Early in life, you could have felt restricted around your beliefs. perhaps raised in a strict religious or philosophical system. Your parents, caregivers, authority figures could have demanded your obedience to a sort of dogma instead of critical thinking. So it creates this inner tension, a desire to break free, but a fear that if you do break free, you're going to do life wrong. A fear of judgment or punishment for stepping out of the truth you were given. Saturn in Sagittarius asks you, what do you believe and why? Are you following someone else's version of the truth, or are you brave enough to discover your own? This placement is going to push you to take intellectual and spiritual responsibility, to study, to question, to learn, also you can outsource your own truth and ultimately decide for yourself. There is a karmic theme here around outdated belief systems. In past lives, you could have been a religious authority, a preacher, a philosopher, or someone who blindly followed a role. In this lifetime, you are being asked to find your own compass. Not by rejecting everything, but by discerning what holds meaning for you. Saturn in Sagittarius also deals with freedom and the responsibility that comes with it. You may long for travel, adventure, expansion, but Saturn makes you earn it. Like, you can't escape just when things get hard. You can't buy a plane ticket when the stress of your work gets too heavy. You are here to build something meaningful with your freedom, not just run from commitment. This placement can also manifest as a delay in higher education and learning, or like a difficulty where you struggled with school, or you didn't pursue college until later in life. Maybe you felt a pressure to have it all figured out when really you just needed time to explore. But when you do pursue knowledge on your own terms, you become a master of it. You are not the person who coasts through school. You are the one who works hard, studies, and applies what they learn. And eventually, you're probably going to become a teacher, a guide, or a philosopher in your own right. With Saturn and Sagittarius, travel can be a really powerful catalyst for your growth. But again, when it's rooted in purpose, not escapism. You are here to expand your worldview in a way that will deepen your commitment to truth. You're not just going to be a tourist in this life. You are a seeker, and every journey you take should bring you closer to your values. This placement also highlights issues with self-righteousness. You may struggle with the need to be right, especially around your beliefs. Saturn can harden the natural openness and optimism of Sagittarius, making you rigid or defensive, but that comes from a place of fear. Fear of being wrong, fear of looking foolish, fear of learning your truth isn't the truth, fear of having your faith shaken. But here's the thing, Saturn and Sag grows stronger when it asks more questions. The more it lets go of the need to be right, the more it humbles itself in the mystery of life while still standing firm in its own experience. Your challenge is to build a belief system that frees you, not limits you. To find teachers, philosophers, practices that really resonate with you, but never giving your power away to them, being discerning, curious, and open yet grounded. This also brings lessons around truth-telling. You could fear telling the truth because of what others might think, or you might swing the other way using truth as a weapon. Either way, the Sagittarius energy is going to teach you the art of wisdom in speech. Say what you mean, but say it with grace. Let your words uplift and clarify, not alienate. Over time, this placement will ripen into the role of the wise teacher. Not because you have all the answers, but because you walk the path of questioning. You've studied, you've fallen, you've gotten back up. And your insights carry weight not because it's blind faith or dogma, but because it's through lived experience that you gained it. If you have Saturn in Sagittarius, you are here to be a bridge between cultures, philosophies, and people who see the world differently. You are not here to preach with arrogance, but to connect, to explore without escaping, and to believe with humility. And most importantly, Saturn in Sagittarius learns that freedom is not about doing whatever you want. It's about choosing your path with intention, committing to what expands you, and having the courage to walk away from whatever is shrinking your soul. That is the ultimate lesson of this placement. Truth that you earn, freedom that you build, and wisdom that isn't just learned, it's lived. Alright guys, don't forget to go ahead to the video chapters and watch the house section of the video to figure out what area of life this shows up for you in. I love you so much, and let's move on to Saturn in Capricorn. Saturn in Capricorn is the textbook placement for Saturn. It is at home in this sign. That means that lessons are intensified. It's incredibly potent. This placement is about discipline, maturity. It's the mastery of time. People with Saturn in Capricorn are here to do the work. Not just any type of work, but the slow, long, deliberate path that builds a legacy. If you have Saturn in Capricorn, you are probably born into this life with a deep sense of duty. Even as a child, you could have felt more mature, older for your years. There is a seriousness with this placement, and knowing that nothing truly worthwhile comes easily. You probably felt pressure to perform or achieve at a very young age. Maybe to take care of others, your parent could have been emotionally absent or held you to impossibly high standards. Whatever the situation was, you learned quickly that safety and love were often conditional based on your performance. Saturn in Capricorn asks you to redefine what success really means. Is it the job title? Is it the bank account, the approval of others? Or is it something deeper, like integrity, resilience? or inner authority. This placement teaches you that true success is built, not granted. And it is not about shortcuts. It's about showing up day after day, even when no one else is clapping, even when your resume was the best in the pile, but you still got picked last. You might struggle with fear of failure, self-doubt, with feeling like no matter how hard you work, it's still not enough. That is Saturn talking to you because it'll test your resolve. It will put up walls in your life not to stop you, but to strengthen you. Each obstacle is an invitation to level up, to prove that you are capable, not to the world, but to your own sense of self-worth. There is a karmic theme here around authority. In past lifetimes, you could have been in positions of power or been oppressed by them. This lifetime is about stepping into leadership in a new way, not by dominating others, but by mastering yourself. Saturn in Capricorn wants you to be the architect of your own reality, to take responsibility not just for success, but for your values, your time, your energy. This placement often also brings a deep respect for time. You often feel like you are racing against the clock, and there's some deadline that you have to meet. But the truth is, you're here to learn that time is your ally, not your enemy, and you begin to build slowly because you're meant to build something that lasts. Saturn in Capricorn is all about the long game, the slow mastery, putting the 10,000 hours in. You might notice that career is a major theme in your life. There could be delays, false starts, or periods where you just feel lost. But when you do find your path, you will climb steadily. Others may pass you early on, but you are the one who is going the longest. You are in it for the long game, who earns respect over time, who becomes the go-getter expert because you didn't cut corners like others. With this placement, there can often also be a deep fear of not living up to your potential. You might procrastinate not out of laziness, but out of a fear that you won't be perfect at it, that your effort won't be enough. Saturn asks you to start to move anyway, to make peace with imperfection and start with one foot in front of the other and trust the path will unfold over time. Relationships can be afflicted by this placement. You might struggle to let people in or be vulnerable. You may feel like you always have to be the strong one, the provider. Part of your growth is learning that strength does not mean isolation, that letting people support you doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. There can also be a fear of ambition, like shining too brightly is scary, or a fear of wanting too much. You might have internalized messages that ambition is selfish, or that you have to sell your soul for success. Saturn in Capricorn teaches you that's not true, and you can have goals and still have integrity at the same time. You can be successful and kind. The two are not mutually exclusive. Over time, this placement will reward you with real, long-lasting achievement, but more than that, it gives you self-respect because you did things the right way. You didn't take the easy route, and you built something solid not just for yourself, but for others too. If you have Saturn in Capricorn, your soul came here to master reality, to become your own authority, to define success on your own terms, to climb mountains not just for the view, but for the growth that comes with the climb. And the final lesson is that true leadership equates to service, that the highest form of power is integrity, and the legacy you leave behind is not just built based off what you accomplished, but the way you carried yourself along the whole way. And guys, don't forget to watch what house your Saturn is in as well. I have the video chapters linked below so you understand what area of life this shows up for you in most. Saturn in Aquarius. This is a paradoxical placement that marries the old with the new. It is traditional with the unconventional. Saturn rules Aquarius in traditional astrology, so it does feel at home here, but with a twist, because Saturn represents structure, boundaries, and time-tested results, while Aquarius represents innovation, rebellion, and a vision for a better future. When these two energies combine, your soul is being asked to become a builder of the future, an architect of progress who stays grounded in reality. If you have Saturn in Aquarius, your karmic lessons are around individuality, group dynamics, and the responsible use of innovation. You likely felt different from a young age, maybe misunderstood, out of sync with your peers, or like you didn't fit into those traditional molds. This can make you overly cautious of expressing your true self, leading you to over-identify with the idea of being different, just for the sake of rebellion. But the true task here is learning how to stand out with purpose. You're not just different to be defiant, you're born different because your soul is wired to see what others can't envision. This placement can make your early years feel isolating or lonely. Group acceptance might have felt just out of reach. You may have felt like an outsider looking in, craving to be a part of that community. But that is part of Saturn's process. It puts you in situations that requires inner growth before outer validation. And when you do find your tribe, aka community of like-minded visionaries, you are capable of building something truly lasting and impactful together. Aquarius is also the sign of ideals, collective, innovation, but with Saturn here, those ideals are being put to the test. It is not enough to just have your vision, you have to build it. You must find the discipline to follow through and put those abstract concepts into tangible form. You could feel blocked at times, or no one really understands your ideas, or they think they're too out there. But Saturn isn't here to deny your innovation. It is here to strengthen it and challenge you to explain it, map it out, defend it, and refine it until it's not just inspiring to people, but also there's a clear plan for execution. You are being asked to question outdated systems, not to destroy them for the sake of rebellion, but instead to learn how to improve and evolve them. Becoming the reformer, and sometimes that means working with certain boundaries to make change that will stick. There could be a complex relationship with technology and modern systems. You could feel both fascinated and skeptical with innovation. You are not someone who just jumps on every trend, but instead you want to understand the mechanics, the implications, and whether it truly serves a purpose. And Saturn adds this filter that's cautious and wise. Is this really sustainable? Is it good for the collective? And friendships and group affiliations are a karmic place for growth for you. In past lives, you could have been involved with oppressive institutions. You could have seen the misuse of group power or experienced persecution for your belief system. Now you are being given a chance to balance those two extremes, to root innovation in ethics and bring progress to structure. There is also a powerful call here towards humanitarianism. You may feel responsible for the well-being of the collective, the marginalized, the underrepresented, but then Saturn says don't just care about them, actually do something about it. Create change through commitment, through organizing systems that work. Your heart may ache from the suffering in this world, but your task is to become a builder of systems that help advance us, not just a dreamer. As you grow with this placement, you learn that leadership doesn't always look like authority with a top-down structure. It can be the backbone of a movement, the consistent presence in a sea of chaos, or the strategist behind a cause. Over time, people begin to respect your steady, principled approach to change. The fear here often lies in wondering if you'll be rejected for your uniqueness, or conversely becoming so detached that no one else can reach you. The middle ground is where Saturn wants you to live, so being uniquely yourself, but also deeply connected to the community around you, rooted in your ideals, but flexible enough to grow with them. Ultimately, Saturn in Aquarius offers a path of lasting innovation. You are here to bring new ideas into old structures, to create systems of equality, freedom, and empowerment, and advancement, but to do it with discipline and wisdom. You are going to help humanity evolve not by escaping reality, but by engaging with it. And with time, your quiet persistence will pay off. You no longer are just the one with the brilliant ideas. You're the one who made those ideas happen. Your journey teaches others that progress doesn't have to be chaotic or reckless. It can be thoughtful, collaborative, and deeply grounded in purpose. You are going to leave a legacy not of noise, but of evolution. It's measured, meaningful, and aligned with a higher vision for society. The final lesson of Saturn in Aquarius is innovation with integrity, freedom through responsibility, and the courage to stand out for something that truly matters. And guys, don't forget to go to the video chapters and watch the section for the house that your Saturn is in, because that'll tell you what area of life it is showing up in. I love you so much. Moving on to Saturn in Pisces. Saturn in Pisces brings together the energy of structure and discipline with the energy of dreams, illusion, and spiritual depth. This is one of the most emotionally and spiritually complex places for Saturn. It asks you to ground the ungrounded, to give form to the formless, and to navigate the deep waters of emotional mysticism with maturity and responsibility. If you have Saturn in Pisces, your life lesson is about learning a healthy balance between surrender and control. You may have grown up feeling your emotions were too much, or that your spiritual inclinations were not acceptable. Maybe you were told to toughen up or stop dreaming, as a result putting up these emotional walls to protect yourself. And now you could struggle to trust your intuition or feel disconnected from your own inner world. But Saturn isn't trying to cut you off from your spirituality or your emotions. It is trying to teach you how to work with them, how you can develop emotional discipline, to learn how to stay grounded while you still navigate the intangible. With Saturn in Pisces, you're not meant to shut off your sensitivity, but you're meant to refine it, to build boundaries, not walls, that will allow you to feel deeply without getting lost. This placement can bring a deep sensitivity to the collective suffering and a strong sense of empathy. Like, you could feel the pain of other people. This is the empath placement. You might feel overwhelmed by the emotional weight of the world. You might not even be able to watch the news. And this can lead to escapism through fantasy, addiction, or spiritual bypassing. But Saturn teaches you that true compassion doesn't mean losing yourself. It means staying present, doing the work, and being a source of strength for others in the storm. You may also wrestle with the fear of failure that is tied to your creative or spiritual expression, like your dreams are seen as too impractical, or that you're not talented enough to make them real. But Saturn says start small, show up every day, put structure around your vision, and when you commit to your dreams with discipline, you begin to see that your expression of creativity and spirituality can be forces of real grounded impact. There can also be a karmic history of disillusionment, of trusting the wrong people or placing faith in the wrong false ideologies. Now you could fear being deceived or losing yourself in something greater than you can even understand. But Saturn asks you to build faith, not blind faith, but faith in experience, faith in yourself, in your inner guidance, in your ability to connect to something higher without losing your own center. This placement can also bring challenges with boundaries, struggling with knowing when to say no, to define where you end and other people begin. You might attract people who drain you or get lost in the emotions and the needs of others. And part of your growth is going to be learning that boundaries are not selfish, they are sacred, and they help everybody in the long run, because they're allowing you to serve from a place of strength, not depletion. Over time, Saturn in Pisces brings the gift of the quiet healer, the grounded mystic, the spiritual guide who leads not by preaching but by example. You developed a practical spirituality, a way of bringing those spiritual ideals into everyday life and learning how to show it for others without abandoning yourself. Understanding that true enlightenment is not about escapism, it is about engagement. In past lives, you could have been involved in religious institutions, spiritual practices, or artistic vocations that required sacrifice. You could have even been a monk, a mystic, a visionary, or someone who suffered for their belief system. In this lifetime, you're being asked to bring those gifts, but to do it with balance, to create a container for your spiritual insight, to give your intuition and your art in a form that will actually benefit others, that is tangible. With this placement, there can be periods of depression or existential crisis, moments where everything feels really meaningless or overwhelming. But those are all part of your path because they force you to strip away illusions and create a spirituality that's real and works, that supports you not just in the moments of bliss, but also in the moments of despair. Ultimately, you're learning how to build faith through responsibility, to learn that devotion isn't just a feeling, it's a practice, to know that your dreams matter, but they do need a framework, that your compassion is so powerful, but it needs to have protection around it. You are here to master the unseen. And over time, you become someone that others will turn to, not because you claim you have all the answers, but because you're this figure who is wise, safe, and deeply compassionate. So others just want to be around that. You'll walk the line between the mystical and the mundane, and you do it with a lot of grace. So your journey overall is not just about escaping the pain, but learning how to transmute it. Through your own healing, you begin to heal others. Saturn in Pisces leaves a legacy of quiet depth, integrity, and the kind of inner peace that only comes from doing the slow, patient inner work. Don't forget to go to the video chapters and watch the part for the house that your Saturn sign is in, because it'll show you what area of life this is going to come up in the most. Congratulations, you have just gotten through all of the signs, or at the very least your sign, and now let's move into Saturn in every single house. With this, Saturn in each house is going to show you what area of life it's going to show up in the most, what area you're stuck in, where you need to grow, what's going to take the longest for you to grow, but once you do, there are extreme rewards in store for you. We are going to begin with Saturn in the first house. This is one of the most visibly intense placements for Saturn because it shows up in your body, face, personality, your entire approach to life. It carries the karmic weight of responsibility in how you present yourself in the world. And it often speaks to an early life experience of suppression, judgment, or an intense pressure to grow up way too fast. With Saturn the first, there's usually a strong sense of personal seriousness. You may have felt older than your years as a child, someone who had to act mature, serious, and independent long before they were actually ready. You can have a stoic reserve about you and this deep internal voice that tells you have to do it yourself, no one is going to save you. And whether it was true or not, it still shaped you in very profound ways. Often, people with this placement carry self-doubt around their appearance or their worth. You may not see yourself as beautiful regardless of how others see you. And Saturn here can bring a harsh inner critic that constantly demands more. This can lead to a reserved, restrained demeanor that makes it hard for you to let your guard down with other people. But beneath this serious exterior is a powerful strength. You are someone who has weathered storms and carried burdens that would break other people down. You were strong not because you wanted to be, but because life gave you no other choice. The first house is all about identity, and with Saturn here, your identity was forged in resilience. There could have been an authority figure, and it's usually the father, but not always. Think of the dominant person who was like the boss of you, and that person could have been strict, absent, controlling, or even just energetically dominant over you. You could have felt bossed around, dismissed, or like your own autonomy did not exist. And now as an adult, your lesson is to reclaim your own authority, how to become your own parent, your own protector, your own solid foundation. So this placement carries a lot of lessons around mastery, self-leadership, and maturity. You are learning to step into that role of leadership, not to dominate others, but to lead your own life. And because you've likely been through so much already, you have a quiet courage about you. People are going to trust you because you radiate a seriousness and capability. This is also, bonus tip, a placement that reverses aging. So in youth, you might have felt like the weight of the world was on your shoulders. You were building up life brick by brick and had no blueprint. But as you grow older, especially after your Saturn return, you lighten up. You start to loosen the grip, find humor, embrace your inner child. It's like you were born old and then you grow to become young again. If you have Saturn in the first house, you probably carry a tension in your body, a feeling like you have to hold everything together. But healing comes from learning to trust yourself, not bracing yourself and expecting life to hurt all the time, to soften in your own skin, in your own power, and in your own identity. You are not here to live by the definitions of what other people think you should be or who you should be. You have to become the authority in your own life, to lead yourself, not because someone else told you to, but because you have done the inner work to stand tall in that authority position. This placement is not easy, but it's super powerful. Once you get through it, you embody strength, wisdom, and grounded self-leadership. And you grow up to be someone that others really look up to, not because you demand respect from them, but you've earned the respect. All right, I love you so much. Don't forget to watch the part in the video where I talk about Saturn returns. That'll be linked in the video chapters in the description. It's also really important to understand the aspects in your chart where Saturn is aspecting. So if you guys do want to learn about that, you can book a reading with me. Let's talk about Saturn in the second house. This brings a karmic lesson around self-worth, value, money, and security. The second house governs your possessions and your money, but also your sense of stability and your relationship to your worth, to what you believe you deserve. With Saturn here, it often creates a storyline of early struggles around lack of money, lack of resources, some sort of instability while you were growing up. And this could have created deeply ingrained fears of not having enough. These people often carry an internalized belief that their worth is conditional, that they have to earn love, safety, or even basic needs through relentless work and proving themselves. There were messages early in life, either subtle or overt, that you were only valuable if you were producing, succeeding, or helping, like you had to earn your place at the table. You could have developed a fear of failure, of losing it all, or like you're not enough, and let me know in the comments which one it is. This can lead to behaviors of overworking, hoarding, or becoming overly attached to money as a measure of self-worth. On the flip side, it can also manifest as poverty consciousness, feeling like abundance is just out of reach no matter how hard you try. You could struggle to charge what you're worth, accept help, or believe that you're truly capable of building financial security for yourself. Saturn here is a master teacher. It wants you to develop real confidence in your ability to create value, not just externally, but also internally. You could come from a family where money was inconsistent, where a parent won big and they lost it all, or where status and security were pursued but never sustained. This kind of roller coaster creates a psychological imprint that safety is fragile. But Saturn is teaching you that stability doesn't come from life's circumstances. It comes from self-mastery, building something brick by brick, slowly, that can stand the test of time. It's really asking you to redefine what value and money means, asking yourself, is it how much you earn, what you own, or is it that quiet inner voice that says, I am worthy just as I am? You are here to detach your self-worth from external validation and cultivate an inner wealth that can never be taken from you. Don't get me wrong, like over time, this placement can bring powerful financial success, but it's never a quick path. You have to work harder, longer, or more strategically than others, but once you get there, it's solid. And this is because you're facing your fears around lack and you learn how to truly manage and multiply your resources. There can also be a strong sense of responsibility, like needing to prove yourself, or responsibility for your family and your community. You could feel like the financial anchor for others, which adds to the pressure but also fuels that drive to create lasting security. Just be mindful of not equating your worth with your ability to carry other people's burdens. In its highest expression, Saturn in the second house creates a financial leader. People who can teach others how to build wealth with wisdom, integrity, and patience. You become someone who values quality over flashiness, substance over hype. You start to understand that real success is not about showing off, but it's about building something grounded, secure, and aligned with your core values. And the reason this hits so deep too is because past lives could have involved themes around poverty, loss, or greed, like money was never fully appreciated and used in the right way. So you're learning how to balance appreciating the material without being enslaved by it. Recognizing that money is just energy, and your job is to direct it wisely from a place of self-respect. You can also face lessons around food, possessions, pleasure, and because Saturn is here, it can bring restriction like eating disorders or trying to control your health in some way as a means to find stability in the world. Healing is going to come from gentle discipline, understanding what truly nourishes you, creating routines and habits that support your well-being without being obsessive. Ultimately, Saturn in the second is here to teach you your value is not up for debate. It is not tied to your bank account, your job title, or how others see you. It is found in the quiet confidence of I am enough. And when you begin to live from that place, you attract because you are aligned with self-respect and the material world starts to respond. You become a master builder of internal and external value. All right, I love you so much. Don't forget to skip to the part where we talk about Saturn returns. I have it linked in the description. Saturn in the third house brings karmic lessons around communication, thinking, and learning. The way you interact with your immediate environment, including siblings, neighbors, community members. And this placement can often point to early life experiences where you felt judged, limited, or insecure about your ability to express yourself or your intelligence. You could have been told to be quiet or that your ideas didn't matter. Or perhaps you struggled in school, like having a learning disability. You could have had speech delays, or simply the education system did not really work with your brain. Your learning style was not aligned. A persistent voice showed up in your head saying, I'm not smart enough, or I don't know how to say this correctly. With Saturn here, communication does not always come easy, at least not at first. You could second guess your words, stumble over your sentences, or stay silent out of fear of being wrong. But this doesn't mean you lack intelligence, because people with Saturn in the third house often have powerful minds, but their challenge is to trust their inner voice enough to share it out loud. There is a karmic wound of being misunderstood, of never fully being heard. Maybe you grew up in a household where your thoughts weren't validated, or you felt invisible. Someone else's voice always dominated when you felt like your thoughts didn't matter. You were talked over, so it creates a deep fear of speaking up. But Saturn wants you to build your voice slowly and deliberately. You are meant to be the most succinct communicator in the room. This placement also indicates a need to overcome mental blocks, breaking through self-doubt, or developing the patience to finish what you start. There can be a tendency to gather a ton of information without grounding it, or to scatter your energy across too many topics without focus. Saturn is here to help you bring order to the mind, to think clearly, speak with precision, and learn in a way that supports your growth, not your fear. You could also have a lot of responsibilities tied to your siblings, like you're the older sibling, the most responsible one, taking care of others, or perhaps you experienced distance, conflict, or loss within your sibling relationships, and that may be led to a sense of loneliness or a disconnect in your immediate circle. You could find it hard to truly connect with others around you, especially in early life. But over time, Saturn in the third will grant you mastery of communication. You become someone others turn to for clear thinking, thoughtful advice, and words that carry weight. You work so hard to develop your voice that you stop wasting words and you respect the power you hold. There's also a teaching quality here. Most people with this placement can become incredible educators, writers, coaches, communicators, the people on the TED Talk stage, but only after doing the work to believe in yourself. This is key here. You must rewrite the story within your head that says, I'm not good enough. What are you telling yourself? Is it that you're not smart enough? You're not articulate enough? Whatever it is, you are enough and your voice does matter. Over time, your voice will become a tool for empowerment. You will learn how to set boundaries with words, how to advocate for yourself and others, how to communicate in a way that isn't just eloquent but also impactful. There is a deep need to rebuild faith in your mind, to trust your inner knowing and that your way of learning, speaking, and thinking is valid, even if it doesn't look like anyone else's. You do not need a fancy vocabulary to speak with wisdom. What matters is honesty, integrity, and the courage to show your mind and voice fully. All right, guys, I love you so much. I hope this helped, and don't forget to skip to the part of the video where I talk about Saturn returns, and we are moving on to Saturn in the fourth house. This brings deep karmic lessons around family, ancestry, your relationship with the past, home, and emotional security. This placement often indicates early life experiences that could have felt cold, restrictive, or burdened with responsibilities. Maybe you grew up in a household where emotions were repressed, they weren't talked about, love was conditional, or you had to grow up really fast and take that adult role on as a child. At the root of this placement is a fear of instability. People with Saturn in the fourth often experience disruptions in their home life. That can be divorce, moving a lot, their house burning down, or just losing their house. Frequent moves, absent parents, financial hardship, or a lack of emotional nurturing. There just was this constant aching that your foundation underneath you wasn't solid. It could be taken away at any point. As a result, you could develop a strong need to control your home environment later in life, or a tendency to stay stuck in unhealthy patterns because they feel familiar. That can also show up in relationships, clinging to the people who feel familiar even when it's painful. Or you can become emotionally closed off, building up walls to protect yourself because you don't want to be hurt again. But Saturn doesn't want you to isolate. It wants you to build real, lasting security inside that no one can take away from you. One of the defining characteristics of this placement is deep emotional reserve. Like, you appear very stoic, calm, and strong on the outside, but on the inside, there's often a longing for safety, connection. You could have felt like the outsider in your family, so you ache for that sense of belonging, or that your emotional needs weren't honored in your family. Saturn here can bring up themes of ancestral trauma, generational trauma, or inherited beliefs around family and home that no longer serve you. The lesson that Saturn is trying to teach you is to become the parent you never had, to create the home you always longed for, to build emotional foundations that are real, stable, nurturing, and safe. But this takes time. Saturn is not about quick fixes. It asks you to confront the pain and take responsibility for your healing, to commit to building yourself a better emotional framework brick by brick. You could feel a strong desire or a need to care for your family, like protecting your aging parent, providing for your children, or holding the emotional well-being of the family all together. This can be noble, but it can also be heavy. A bonus tip is to find balance with Saturn, giving from a place of love, not obligation, making sure you're nourished first. And this placement has a deep internal strength. Because you've known instability, you have the capacity to create extraordinary stability. You understand what it takes to weather storms, to hold space for others, to keep going. And you create a home that feels like a safe haven. Other people will rely on you because you have this solid exterior. In past lives, you could have experienced displacement, war, loss of homeland, or deep family trauma. These themes really echo in this life, asking you to heal them. You're here to create a new emotional blueprint, break cycles of ancestral trauma, and that ability to build a stable inner life and emotional well-being will be your greatest contribution. Part of your soul's evolution is learning that vulnerability isn't a weakness. It's safe to open up. It helps others as well. You understand that vulnerability is the foundation of intimacy, and that's how you build true emotional connection with others. At the end of the day, Saturn in the fourth house is about coming home to yourself, creating a place inside and outside that feels safe, supportive, nourishing, and secure. While that might take a lot of time, effort, and deep inner work, the home that you end up building emotionally and physically will stand the test of time. All right, guys, I love you so much. Don't forget to go ahead and watch the Saturn Returns section of the video. I'll have it linked in the chapters, and I will see you in the next one. Saturn in the fifth house. This brings karmic lessons around creativity, self-expression, joy, romance, and the inner child. It can point to early experiences where your natural instinct was to play, to have fun, to create, or simply enjoy. But then those instincts were blocked, judged, or suppressed. You could have been told to grow up, or felt like joy and fun always came with consequences. This placement creates a deep inner narrative of I am not allowed to enjoy myself, or I have to earn joy. As a result, people with Saturn in the fifth can grow up being very skeptical of pleasure or uncomfortable with being seen in a playful, creative, or joyful light. The challenge here is to heal your inner child so you can allow yourself to feel joy again without guilt or fear. You guys could struggle with sharing your artistic gifts, like maybe you have an amazing talent, like you are a skilled painter, but you fear being judged. So you constantly edit yourself, overthink, or perfect things to the point where they never get shared. This placement can make you feel like you're the artist who hides their work, the singer who never gets on stage, or the dreamer who never lets themselves dream too big. But Saturn isn't suppressing your creativity here, it is refining it. Your growth comes from committing to your own self-expression. You are not meant to create like anyone else. You are meant to develop a creative voice that's authentic, disciplined, and truly your own. Whether it's writing, singing, music, painting, acting, whatever form of self-expression, Saturn teaches you how to bring structure and mastery to your art form. And through that, you are going to gain a lot of confidence. This also brings lessons around romantic love. You could attract partners who limit you or mirror your fears around vulnerability and joy. Or you can put strict conditions on love, only letting people in when it feels safe or when they earned it. But Saturn wants you to learn how to give and receive love without earning it, without needing to be perfect. Real love is going to be imperfect, it's raw, it's playful, it's messy, and that is where true enjoyment lies. Children can also play a significant role in your Saturn journey, whether you're afraid of having kids or you feel a pressure around becoming the perfect parent. There is some karmic theme here around emotional maturity and responsibility in the children area. If you don't have children, think of it as your creative babies, like your projects, your launches, your passions. Those will become the place where Saturn teaches you about commitment and faith in your own voice. People with this placement often feel like they have to deserve joy, but the truth is joy is your birthright. You don't have to earn it, you just have to allow for it. And the more you make space for things like art, going out with friends, passion, love, the more your heart opens up, the more your gifts and talents will flourish. You're going to also have to confront your relationship with rejection because maybe you put your art out into the world and it was shut down. But Saturn is telling you that rejection isn't failure, it's just redirection. Every time you show up for yourself, even when it's scary, it'll chip away at that wound and help you build a sense of self-worth. Over time, Saturn in the 5th house makes you a master at your art. You develop a deep capacity for love, not just for others, but also for yourself. You learn how to enjoy life with intention and integrity, and you discover when you commit to joy, it becomes a powerful source of healing in your life. Saturn is going to teach you how to fall in love with the process, to trust that showing up with consistency day after day for your projects is enough. Alright guys, I love you so much. Don't forget to watch the section where I talk about Saturn returns. I'll have that linked in the video chapters. Moving on to Saturn in the 6th house. Saturn in the 6th brings a karmic focus around work, health, daily routines, and responsibility. This placement will ask you to master the art of discipline and learn how to balance service with self-respect. You could have grown up in an environment where work was everything, like you earned love through achievement or you watched your caregivers sacrifice their well-being for the sense of duty. As a result, you could have internalized a belief that you're only worthy if you're productive, that rest is laziness and you need to control your body rather than respect it. Saturn here creates an internal voice telling you to do more, be more, and not mess up. This can lead to perfectionism, workaholism, or anxiety around failure. But Saturn is not here to punish you, it's here to refine you. That includes putting you through lessons where you can learn to honor your limits, work with your body instead of against it, and learn to value progress over perfection. You could also experience challenges around obsessive health concerns or an obsession with wellness in general. Some people with this placement can become hypochondriacs or overly restrictive and controlling about their diet. If not your diet, maybe your routines or your fitness. Others may neglect their health entirely until a crisis comes into their life and forces them to pay attention. Saturn in the 6th house demands balance. It will not reward extremes. Your physical well-being becomes a mirror for how well you're honoring your emotional and spiritual well-being. On the flip side, this placement can really give you a deep sense of purpose through your work and service, like you have a deep sense of fulfillment when you are producing something meaningful or helping others out. Whether you're caring for others, organizing chaos, healing through structure, or simply showing up reliably day after day, that devotion to craft, mastery, it is what makes you indispensable. Saturn in the 6th house is the quiet architect of excellence. You do not need to be in the spotlight to be powerful. Your strength lies in your consistency. You could have also been the child who had to grow up fast. Now as an adult, you could take on more than you share, saying yes because you feel guilty or out of habit even when you're feeling overwhelmed. Saturn's lesson here is to differentiate between true service and self-sacrifice, to know the difference between martyrdom and responsibility. A little bonus tip is Saturn in the 6th house can point to a deep bond with small animals. You could find healing through your relationship with animals, or there's something deeply grounding about being responsible for a small living being that needs you, not because you're trying to earn love, but because it connects you to your own nurturing capacity. There is also a shadow side to this placement around being stuck in roles that feel beneath your potential. You could find yourself trapped in jobs that feel limiting, that underpay you, or where you go unrecognized. And Saturn is asking you, are you undervaluing yourself? Are you afraid to step into something greater because you don't believe you're worthy? The real work here is to claim your worth, not by overworking, but through conscious alignment with what you actually want in the world. In past lives, you could have served others at the cost of your own development. You could have been a caretaker, a servant, an assistant, or even enslaved, and this will leave a deep imprint around duty, humility, and sacrifice. So you're learning how to balance service with sovereignty. Healing this placement often comes with redefining what productivity really means. You begin to understand that rest, pleasure, connection aren't distractions from the work itself. They will help you go further for a longer time. You're releasing that guilt around rest. Understanding that burnout is not getting a badge of honor. Saturn will reward you when you are doing something sustainable instead of sprinting. It's about pacing yourself for the marathon of life. This discipline, this ability to be in service, will develop a strong, quiet power inside you. You no longer need external value to feel worthy. You understand the value of your efforts even if they go unnoticed. And you start to find satisfaction in the mastery itself, the act of showing up every single day and having a routine that keeps things going smoothly. That is the gift that Saturn is bringing you, a deep, unshakable trust in your ability to create structure, maintain health, and build a life that is in alignment with your value. I love you so much. Don't forget to watch the section where we talk about Saturn Returns. I'll have it linked in the description, and I will see you in the next. Saturn in the 7th house brings a karmic focus around relationships, commitment, balance, and boundaries. If you have this, you're probably a soul who has experienced a deep pain in their connections, in their partnerships, whether that was through rejection, loss, betrayal, or suppression. It can make you feel like relationships are hard, they're delayed, or carry a heavy weight. But underneath all of that difficulty is a profound lesson on how you can build something real and lasting with somebody. With Saturn here, you could feel a fear around closeness. You could attract partners who are older, more dominant, or emotionally unavailable. Or you're the person who pulls away, who guards themselves, who's skeptical and needs to get proof before they let someone in. There is a tendency to put walls around your heart, but Saturn does not want you to avoid intimacy. It wants you to take it seriously, making a conscious commitment to choose quality connections over quantity. You could have had early experiences in life where relationships didn't feel safe. Maybe you witnessed unhealthy dynamics, or you were taught that love isn't safe, or that love had conditions. As a result, you can enter partnerships where you give too much, suppress your needs, feel like you have to earn love. You could even end up with someone who dominates you, who makes all the decisions, who doesn't let you have a voice, leading you to realize you've been silenced. But the lesson of Saturn in the 7th is self-responsibility in relationships. Not just choosing someone who completes you, but to value the whole of one person. You are learning to hold your boundaries, speak your truth, and stand beside your partner, not beneath them. Saturn teaches you that being committed to someone is not about control, it's about integrity, and you don't have to abandon yourself, your desires to be loved. As you grow up, you really understand what relationships require: effort, patience, maturity. You are not here for casual flings. You are wired for depth and connection. You want to build a long-lasting bond that weathers the storm. And while that might take you longer to find, what you build will be stronger for it. Saturn rewards those who do the work, and the relationships you start to attract later in life, once you've integrated all those lessons, can become the most enduring, solid, growth-oriented connections. One little bonus tip is the relationships you attract can often be a mirror for you. So if you attract controlling people, where are you still trying to control yourself? If you feel unseen by your partner, where are you still not seeing yourself? The 7th house is all about projections, so with Saturn here, you're being asked to take back the projections and to own your own power. In past lives, you may have been heavily defined by your partnership. You could have played the role of the dutiful spouse, the silent supporter, or someone behind the scenes advising everything. So now there's a karmic memory of being overshadowed or overempowered, and this life is about reclaiming your equality in partnership. Ultimately, Saturn in the 7th house is not here to punish you. It is here to teach you how to build love on solid ground. Growing through connection, learning when to stay and how to work through it when things get hard. You are going to get the gift of building a relationship that lasts a lifetime. But first, you're going to go through the lessons to help you develop the wisdom to do so. I love you so much. If you guys want to learn about Saturn returns, I have a section in the video. Check the video chapters in the description to skip to that part of the video. I love you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Saturn in the 8th house. This is a deeply intense placement that speaks to karma around trust, intimacy, shared resources, death, power, and transformation. This is not surface level astrology, this is soul deep. With Saturn here, you are being asked to master the emotional underworld, to get comfortable with the parts that are hidden, taboo, and uncomfortable to talk about. This placement can bring a fear around vulnerability, like you don't feel safe fully letting people in, especially emotionally or sexually, and there's a belief that if you do let people see the real you, they will leave or use it against you. So it creates a tendency to withhold, control, or stay on the surface. But Saturn is not trying to block intimacy. It is trying to teach you how to do it safely, with integrity, without losing yourself in the process. You could have experienced early loss or betrayal that created these fears within you. Perhaps a parent was emotionally absent or they were gone all the time. Maybe you were exposed to trauma before you were equipped to handle it. These early experiences could have created a subconscious contract saying don't let anyone get too close. But that contract is no longer serving you, and Saturn in the 8th house is asking you to write a new one where intimacy is a choice, not a threat. This can also bring a deep fear around losing control of your emotions, your finances, your boundaries, or your power. You could try and keep everything tightly managed even when it hurts you. This can also show up in how you manage money with others. You could avoid joint ventures or refuse to merge bank accounts with your partner. You could think, if I stay in control, I'll be safe. But Saturn's lesson here is that real power comes from trust, not domination. Financial themes are really prominent here. You could have experienced inheritance, debt, or some sort of betrayal around shared resources. You could feel undeserving of the wealth that's handed to you, or feel shame around receiving support. The deeper work here is around worthiness, knowing that you are allowed to receive without owing your soul in return. Money, like intimacy, is a shared resource, a shared energy that reflects deeper emotional truths. There could have been a history of repression, shame, or trauma around sex and intimacy, so Saturn is helping you navigate through these layers with care, awareness, and a commitment to healing. Over time, you will start to realize that the very things you feared are actually the gateways to profound empowerment. You become someone who can sit with the hard truths, who can support others through their grief and transformation, who stops running from the shadow and learns to integrate it. There is also a mystical element here. The 8th house rules death and rebirth. With Saturn here, you may feel a karmic calling to be a guide. You could be drawn to psychology, healing, sex therapy, astrology, the occult, even mediumship. You are not afraid to go deep into the depths. Saturn's discipline gives you the ability to bring structure and form to the formless. Saturn's influence here can also surface as a reluctance to confront your inner shadows. You could unconsciously fear the depth you have, avoiding those intense emotions, but your strength will begin to lie in your ability to go into the depths without being consumed by them. Therapy, shadow work, trauma-informed healing can all become really transformative tools for you. Once you've done the work, you become a profound healer and space holder for others and yourself. You develop a magnetic presence, someone who others turn to when they're going through it. It is one of the most powerful placements for deep transformation and healing, not just for yourself, but also for the collective. You learn that intimacy is a sacred act, that letting someone truly see you is one of the most courageous things you can do. And when you choose to trust wisely, not blindly, you create relationships that are deeply rooted, resilient, and transformative. All right, guys, if you want to learn more about the Saturn return, go ahead and skip to the part of the video where I talk about it, linked in the description. Saturn in the 9th house brings a karmic focus to belief systems, philosophy, higher education, religion, and your worldview. This is the part of your chart that asks, what do I believe in? What do I trust? What is true to me? With Saturn here, those questions will not be answered lightly over your lifetime. You were born to challenge dogma, dissolve outdated ideologies, and build a belief system rooted in personal truth, not inherited roles. People with Saturn in the 9th house often feel a sense of restriction in the traditional forms of education, religion, philosophy. You could have grown up in a really rigid belief structure, something that was handed down without question. Perhaps you were told what to believe, how to act, what was moral versus immoral. You could have been raised in a conservative or highly structured environment where questioning was discouraged and obedience was rewarded. This creates a natural tension because part of you longs to believe in something or belong to something bigger than yourself, but another part of you resists, doubts, You could oscillate between clinging to religion and rejecting it, and that can feel really isolating, like you're caught between two worlds, unable to fully commit to one belief system because none of them feel right. That is where Saturn's medicine comes in, because you're not here to blindly follow spiritual or intellectual authority. You are here to build your own, and that's not easy. It's going to require effort, patience, and time. You could find that your spiritual path doesn't really align until later in life, perhaps not until your Saturn return, but when it does, it will be real hard won and it'll feel like yours. You can also encounter or face delays in higher education. Maybe college took longer than expected, or it didn't happen at all. Maybe you felt like you weren't smart enough for traditional academia. It just did not fit your learning style, but Saturn asks you not to give up. It wants you to commit to finding a learning path that works with you and sticking to it. You are here to master a field, stick with it, and teach from lived experience. This placement also brings karma around judgment. Maybe you were judged harshly for your beliefs in the past, or perhaps you were the one doing the judging in past lifetimes. Either way, this lifetime is about humility, about realizing the truth is vast and ever evolving, and that no one holds all the answers. As you grow up, you become more open-minded, not in a naive way, but in a deeply wise way. You learn to hold space for paradox, for different perspectives, and to trust your inner compass above all. Travel is another theme of the 9th house, and with Saturn here, you could feel a deep longing to see the world, but also a fear, restriction, or delay around doing so. You could have had to postpone travel due to responsibilities, financial limitations, or fears around safety. But your soul craves expansion, and once you begin to explore, even if it's later in life, you will discover a deep, stabilizing wisdom when you connect with other cultures, philosophies, and landscapes. With this placement, there is a teacher within you, someone who doesn't just repeat what they've been told, but who turns their life into lived wisdom. With Saturn's discipline, you can write, teach, speak with authority, and you're not interested in the fluff. You want the real things. You put in the hours, you put in the research, and the pilgrimage it takes to get there. And in past lives, you could have been a religious authority, a guru, a scholar, or someone who enforced doctrine upon others. So there could be a karma around rigid thinking, superiority complexes, spiritual superiority, or punishing others for their wrong beliefs. This life is about replacing that rigid law with compassionate truth and turning beliefs into bridges between people instead of walls. You could also have a deep karmic fear around getting it wrong, saying the wrong thing, teaching the wrong thing, or believing in something that will lead you astray. So this can create a hesitation to step into the wisdom and claim your truth fully. You could keep your beliefs to yourself, afraid of being ridiculed or challenged, but Saturn really wants you to refine your voice, not silence it. You are here to learn that your truth matters and it's okay if it evolves. You don't need to have all the answers in order to be a good guide for other people. Just speak from a place of lived experience, sincerity, and integrity. As you mature, you're going to recognize that wisdom isn't loud, it is grounded, and you will no longer seek certainty through rigid ideologies, but instead lived experience. And you'll see that your authority doesn't come from how much you know, but how deeply you understand something. The beliefs that you ultimately adopt are going to be your greatest gift in this life. You become a steady voice in a very noisy world, one that others will turn to when their own faith wavers. Ultimately, Saturn in the 9th house is about a belief system that stands the test of time, one that grows with you, informed by experience, not fear. You are not here to follow someone else's path. You are here to pave your own, and in doing so, you inspire others to explore and question what they believe is possible. Alright guys, I love you so much. Don't forget to go to the section of the video where we talk about Saturn returns, and let's move on to Saturn in the 10th house. Saturn in the 10th is at the top of the chart, being one of the most visible placements. If you have Saturn here, it is standing on the stage, spotlighting your career, public image, reputation, and the legacy you are meant to build. It is a powerful placement, but it does not come easy. With Saturn here, you have to earn your success, and let me know your experience with it. But you guys don't get to skip steps. You don't get to take shortcuts. You can't fake it till you make it. But once you put in the work and you rise, it will last the test of time. From a young age, you could have felt a deep pressure to succeed. Maybe you were the old soul of your family, the one who carried the expectations, or perhaps you had to grow up so fast because your parent failed at their own career and you were the one to step up. There could have been some sort of instability in the home that forced you to be the responsible one, and that early experience can implant the belief that your worth is directly tied to your achievement. Like you have to earn love and respect or safety through your performance. This placement also brings a deep fear of failure. You could overwork yourself, overachieve, or hold yourself to an impossibly high standard, feeling like you're constantly behind no matter how much you do, like it is never enough. But You know, that fear is what drives you long term. Saturn in the 10th house will give you the stamina to go the long distance, to keep building, refining, and rising even when the rewards and results are slow. There can also be feelings of being overlooked or undervalued in your professional life. You could watch the less qualified people get promoted when you put in twice the effort, but rejection is part of your karmic path here. Not because you're not good enough, but because you are being molded. You are being taught for resilience, and the secret is that each of those no's are actually preparing you for the biggest yes of your life. Authority figures are probably playing a central role in your life. Maybe you feared them, resented them, or tried to emulate them. You could have had a parent who dominated the household or abandoned you, or abandon their responsibility altogether. Either way, there is a wound around leadership. You could resist taking on authority because you connect it to control or pain, but Saturn is asking you to redefine what power means. You are here to become a leader who leads with integrity, not dominance. Over time, you will develop a strong sense of responsibility, discipline, ambition. You become someone who doesn't just dream of success, but who puts in the work, knows how to delay gratification, how to commit to long-term goals, and how to stay steady even when others waver. Saturn in the 10th does not promise overnight fame. It promises lasting success, lasting influence. There's often a karmic calling to build something larger than yourself, a business, a brand, a mission, some sort of reputation that serves the collective. You are not here to play small, but you also can't skip the internal work. You are going to be required to define success on your own terms. Is it wealth, influence, impact? Once you know what you're building, Saturn will hand you the blueprint and the bricks to get it done. In past lives, you could have misused power, neglected responsibility, or had your reputation destroyed, so now you're being asked to rebuild that legacy from a place of maturity. Another thing that could have happened is living where you served faithfully behind the scenes, and now you're ready to step into the spotlight. Either way, both paths require effort, but the rewards will be immense. There can also be a karmic weight to visibility itself, feeling both drawn to getting recognized and also fearing it because you're scared of the judgment, criticism, or responsibility that comes with being seen. This can lead to a push-pull dynamic in career. You want to rise, but then you resist the spotlight. Saturn is teaching you to stand tall through it all anyways, to understand that being seen doesn't mean you have to be perfect. It means showing up as someone real, teaching others what it looks like to lead with accountability instead of ego. As you grow into your 10th house Saturn placement, you realize that true authority is not about dominance. It is about serving, it is about service, and you're not just building for yourself, but you are creating for others, whether that's a platform, a message. Your impact is going to reach far and wide. But the key is consistency. If you keep showing up, keep doing the work, and keep your integrity intact, you will rise. And when you do, it's not going to be from luck, it's going to be from legacy. You earned it. You'll trust your authority without needing external validation. To know that even when no one else is clapping, your work still matters. That is Saturn's real gift, the quiet confidence that doesn't need applause to know it's valuable. All right, guys, I love you so much. Make sure to watch the section in the video where I talk about Saturn Returns. I'll have it linked in the video chapters, and I'll see you in the next one. Saturn in the 11th house brings karmic lessons around friendships, social groups, and communities. Not only this, but also your long-term vision for the future. This isn't just about who you hang out with. It's how you show up in the collective. With Saturn here, there is a deep desire to belong, to contribute, but also a sense of alienation, self-doubt, or even isolation with peers. You could feel like the outsider in every single room, even when you're surrounded by people. This placement can manifest as early experiences feeling like the different one, or a sense of rejection from others. Maybe your interests did not match your peers, or you felt misunderstood by your classmates or childhood friends. You could have been the kid to prefer books to parties, who was excluded for being too weird or too serious. Over time, this can create like a social armor, an instinct to withdraw, judge, or suppress your uniqueness in order to fit in. But Saturn does not want you to conform. When it's in the 11th house, it is here to teach you to hold your uniqueness with pride as you find the right tribe. People who see you, get you, value you, not in spite of your differences, but because of them. The journey could be slow and friendships could take time to build, at least the true friendships. But when you finally do, they will be mature, long-lasting, strong. You could also carry a karmic pattern of being the lone wolf, the rebel, or the observer on the sidelines. In the past lives, you could have been cast out from society or misunderstood, even forced into solitude in some way. Now your soul is learning to rejoin the collective, not by pretending to be someone you're not, but by offering your authenticity as a contribution. You don't have to be like everyone else, you just have to show up as yourself and the right people will find you. With Saturn in the 11th, you are being asked to take responsibility for your dreams, for your visions, because this is the house of vision, hope, of what could be. And Saturn wants you to make it real. It doesn't want you to just wish or fantasize. It's asking you to get to work. Whether it's a business, a movement, an intention, a long-term goal, a nonprofit, this placement asks you to build something that will benefit the greater good. The gift is that you have the ability to turn idealism into action. There can be a hesitation here to trust people or let them in. You could feel like you have to do everything alone or that relying on others makes you weak, but you will learn from Saturn that collaboration is key. Not everyone will disappoint you, and there are people who want to help, support, and build with you. Part of your growth will be releasing the fear of being seen or being supported, because once you get vulnerable in group dynamics and connect with people, you will unlock some of your greatest rewards. This is such a powerful placement for social impact too, because you could feel like a quiet, relentless pull towards improving society, influencing policy, or championing marginalized communities. Even if you doubt your influence, the truth is that people watch you. They learn from your steadiness, your quiet dedication, your refusal to give up. Like, you might not be flashy, but your influence really does last. In past lives, you could have used your genius to isolate yourself or just held yourself back because you feared rejection. Now you are meant to bring your genius, your intelligence into connection, connecting with others, ideas, the world. Being the social architect, the one who builds bridges between groups, creates inclusive spaces, and reminds people that belonging is not about similarity, it is about shared values. Saturn in the 11th asks you to become the elder, the guide, the leader within your communities, not by commanding them, but by embodying wisdom. And I know a lot of you probably struggle with imposter syndrome, but the more you show up, the more you realize that everything leading up to this point, your path has prepared you for the role. So for all of you that have that fear that you don't truly belong, that your ideas are too strange, or that your contributions won't matter, that is precisely the illusion that Saturn is trying to break. You are really meant to understand that belonging does not mean blending in. It's about showing up in authenticity, using your gifts and your conviction. When you do, you become a magnet for the people that are aligned with you, seeking something real. As you evolve, you will realize the very things that excluded you now set you apart in a really good way. The ability to think differently, to stay committed when others flake, and to turn that vision you have into a structure. Those are rare gifts, and you become someone where others will share their ideas and hopes with you, thinking that maybe you can help them bring it into form. All right, guys, I love you so much. Don't forget to watch the section in the video chapters where I talk about the Saturn return. I'll have it linked in the video chapters in the description, and I'll see you in the next video. Saturn in the 12th house. This is one of the most mysterious, complex, spiritually loaded placements. Here, Saturn is no longer about external authority. It is about internal mastery, karmic themes that are often hidden from the conscious view. It can feel like carrying a weight that you don't fully understand, a responsibility doesn't seem to have a clear source, or an underlying fear of losing control. You could have grown up feeling isolated, misunderstood, or even invisible, and there could have been a parent who was absent physically, emotionally, or mentally, so then the emotional burden of your family landed on you in some way. Even if no one said it out loud, you felt it. This placement often comes with a heightened sensitivity towards the suffering of others, like an energetic sponge that absorbs the pain of the world. And because of that, you may retreat. It's so much on you that you isolate, try and escape, or use solitude as a coping mechanism. You can have this fear of being overwhelmed by the chaos of life or your own emotions. Saturn in the 12th is teaching you that boundaries are not just physical, they are energetic, emotional, and spiritual. Because you are fearing being absorbed by life's chaos, you build up these walls. You compartmentalize, disappear into fantasy, maybe fantasy novels, movies, or into spirituality, cycles of self-sabotage. But Saturn is asking you to face those shadows instead of avoiding them. Because when you do, you get the gift of being able to turn fear into faith and unconscious pain into conscious healing. This placement often comes with karmic themes around institutions, confinement, or mental health. Like maybe you fear losing control so much that the idea of a hospital, a jail, a mental breakdown really haunts you. Or you even had a parent who struggled with mental health, addiction, or disappeared into their own world of suffering. Whatever the case, part of your purpose here is a responsibility to bring light into those hidden places. You are not here to escape reality, but instead to transmute it. And your healing begins when you stop trying to fix the chaos around you, but instead cultivate peace within you. This is the placement of spiritual discipline. Saturn doesn't want you to drift. It wants you to anchor your compassion, your dreams, and your intuition into something steady. That can be meditation, therapy, journaling, dream work. And then these become your tools for inner alignment. With Saturn in the 12th, what most people don't talk is it can feel like your pain is invisible, your efforts go unnoticed, or your strength is ignored. But that does not mean that it's not real. That does not mean that you are delusional. In fact, much of your karmic strength comes from what you do behind the scenes. You are the one who holds space for others, cleans up emotional messes, who silently supports others without needing the spotlight, and that quiet power that you have is very sacred. There is also such a creative depth with this placement: poetry, music, film, healing, mysticism. You are drawn to the realms that can't be easily explained because they help you connect to that sense of your inner world. And this placement is asking you to ground all of that inspiration, that dream work into form, into reality. So don't just dream about it and stay in your imagination, but instead write the song, write the book, teach the class. Your gift is turning the imagination, the fantastical, into something tangible that other people can access and benefit from. In past lives, you could have been a monk, a nun, a mystic, or someone who lived in isolation. This can also be someone who abused their spiritual gifts and are now learning about humility and stewardship. Either way, this life is about becoming a bridge between the seen and the unseen, the chaos and the calm. One of your greatest tasks is learning how to be alone without feeling lonely. Solitude becomes like a sanctuary for you instead of a prison. And over time, you begin to realize that silence is filled with answers. Your strength will really come from going inward and listening deeply to what others tune out. As you begin to strengthen your inner foundation, your life around you will reflect the steadiness. You will see stability in your life around you, and others will come to you not for surface level advice, but for like soul transforming truths. This placement will also teach you how to hold space for suffering without being consumed by it, developing like compassionate boundaries. You could be drawn to healing work, psychology, art therapy, spiritual guidance, or any field where you help others navigate what is hard to name. But you must tend to your own healing as diligently as you do to others. Saturn will demand you to become your own anchor before you help other people. As you grow with this placement, you embody a quiet kind of mastery. You don't need to announce the growth you have. People feel your energy. There is such wisdom, a sacredness with your presence because you survive the deep waters of your psyche. And when you choose to share what you've been through, that wisdom that you have through your experience, through your words or your service or your presence with people, you will become a lighthouse for others feeling lost in life. That is the gift of Saturn in the 12th house. You don't just overcome things, you illuminate the path for other people. And guys, if you want to see more content like this, please subscribe. And the last thing I'm going to talk about in the video is Saturn returns. And if you've been with me so far in the video, please leave me a comment of how your Saturn placement shows up for you in your life. I would love to hear it. But back to Saturn returns, this is one of the biggest astrological rites of passage. It is a checkpoint where the universe asks you, are you living in alignment with your truth, your maturity, and your responsibility? It occurs a couple times, so first around age 28 to 30, 58 to 60, and then in your late 80s, around 88 to 90. Each Saturn return is like a spiritual graduation. It is when you meet yourself stripped of excuses and face the life you built so far. Your first Saturn return is so intense because it marks the end of your childhood in a karmic sense. This is when the training wheels come off. Everything you were taught, everything you believed would work, if it's not built on something solid, Saturn will shake it up in your life. Jobs, relationships, homes, identities. If they're out of alignment with your true path, they might collapse, and this isn't to punish you, it is redirection so you can live more in alignment with who you are meant to become, something fulfilling for you. The universe is telling you you are ready to grow up, to stand on your own, to become your own authority, and it'll strip away any illusions in life to help you see very clearly. It is like the spiritual equivalent of a spring cleaning, only sometimes it's going to feel like a demolition, a tower moment. You can feel very lost, uncertain, panicked, and that is normal because you are being completely reshaped. Real adulthood is not about paying the bills. It is about choosing integrity over approval, purpose over popularity, and discipline over distraction. So Saturn returns are going to demand honesty. If you've been living someone else's dream, this is the time where you're going to feel it, and it's too painful to go on. If you've been ignoring your boundaries, your body, your soul, this is when it will catch up with you, and Saturn does not care about shortcuts. It cares about foundations, so ask yourself, what am I building? Is it authentic to me? Not everyone will experience their Saturn return as a breakdown. For some, it really feels like a breakthrough, like an aha moment, especially if you've already done the inner work and gotten aware of your Saturn, which we did in this video, and start to heal those patterns early. When you take responsibility, you're true to yourself and committed to a path that honors your values. In that case, Saturn will bring you the rewards during this time. Maybe you land a new job, you meet your dream partner, you move into a dream house, or you finally feel like you've arrived at your goals. But regardless of whether or not it feels like a breakdown or a buildup, the goal is still the same. It's maturity, real, grounded, spiritual maturity. Saturn doesn't care about how flashy your life looks, it cares about how solid and steady it is. Each return you go through in life will deepen the lesson. The second in your late 50s is like a check-in. Did you stay true to what you learned in your late 20s? Have you evolved from then, or have you gone numb? And the third, for those who reach it, is like a legacy checkpoint. Saturn asks you, what have you built and what wisdom will now pass down? There is a reason that Saturn is called the Lord of Karma. It does not forget, but it's also very fair. So it's going to reward your effort, your consistency, your humility. It teaches you that time is not the enemy and you don't have to have everything figured out by 30, even if you think that you will. You do need to be honest, though, about what's not working and be brave enough to change it. If you are in your Saturn return right now, please let me know. If it's hard, you're not doing something wrong. In fact, if you're going through a difficult part, you are growing a lot. The more you resist it, the heavier it will feel. So I encourage you to understand your sign and your house and the aspects in your chart so you can navigate it more clearly. The more you resist it, the heavier it will feel. And sometimes it can be challenging to understand and navigate all of this alone. So if you guys do want to book a reading with me, I can help you dive deeper into your chart linked below. But the more you surrender to the lessons of it, the clearer your path will become. This is when you stop outsourcing your power. You stop blaming your parents, your ex, your past. You realize that this is your life and you own it. You own what you've done and how you've gotten here. Many people also experience what feels like a divine delay during their Saturn return. You may want quick results, but Saturn will delay it. It'll make you earn it, especially if you're trying to take shortcuts, skip steps. Saturn doesn't want fast fame or instant gratification. It wants you to master the process so that your results will actually last. There is also a shedding that occurs. Friendships that no longer resonate will fall away. Dreams that once fueled you to the top now may feel superficial or hollow, and that can feel really devastating. But Saturn is asking you to distinguish who you thought you'd be versus who you are meant to become. Sometimes it's not about doing more, it's about doing less and being more purposeful and meaningful with your actions. Slowing down, living in alignment, not just ambition. As hard as a Saturn return can be, it's also so empowering because it forces you to start taking things seriously, to stop waiting for permission and start giving it to yourself. It's when you begin to realize that every challenge you face is shaping you into the person you came here to be, and that pressure is not supposed to break you, but to reveal who you truly are, your strength, your truth, and that's when you can live a life that's actually in alignment and fulfilling for you. Saturn rewards the people who show up, put in the consistent effort, and have patience with the process. So take responsibility, face the hard truths, and keep it going. You guys got this. You're gonna get through it. If this video gave you any insight, any clarity, or even just a bit of comfort moving forward, please subscribe to the channel for more content like this and like the video so other people can benefit from it too. In fact, if you know anybody who is going through their Saturn return, about to go through it, please send this to them. Your chart is a blueprint for your highest potential and helps us understand how to better navigate the challenges of life. I love you so much. I will see you in the next video.